At my husband's family barbecue, my husband's sister made a joke. If you disappeared tomorrow, no one would even notice. Everyone laughed, except me. I just raised my hot dog and said, "Challenge accepted." I moved out that night, cut contact, and vanished. A year later, they're who's forgotten now. So, this is a weird one. Honestly, I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but after lurking on here forever, I figured maybe my story belongs. Last summer, my husband's family threw this big barbecue at his parents' place. I'd been married to him for 4 years at that point, and let's just say his family never exactly rolled out the welcome mat for me. They weren't outright cruel, most of the time, but it was always little digs, little comparisons, and this constant vibe that I wasn't really part of them. Anyway, we're all sitting around in the backyard, eating, drinking, the usual. His sister, let's call her Amy, has always been the worst offender. She has this mean girl streak that everyone just excuses because that's just Amy. At one point, we're talking about neighbors or something, and out of nowhere, Amy looks right at me and goes, "Honestly, if you disappeared tomorrow, no one would even notice." And the kicker? The whole table laughed. Like it was some hilarious roast. Except me. I just stared at her for a second, felt my chest tighten, and then I did the only thing my brain could come up with in the moment. I raised my hot dog like a glass and said, "Challenge accepted." People laughed again, thinking I was joking. But I wasn't. That night, after everyone went to bed, I packed a bag. I didn't yell, I didn't fight, I didn't even leave a note. I just left. I cut contact with all of them, my husband included. And I disappeared. It's been a year. And funny thing? They're the ones nobody remembers now. The night I walked out of that house, I honestly didn't have a solid plan. It wasn't some big revenge plot I'd been cooking up, it was just me hitting my limit. I had about $2,500 in savings, a beat-up car, and this bone-deep certainty that I couldn't keep living like that. First, I drove 3 hours to a small town where I knew no one. Checked into a cheap roadside motel for a couple of nights while I figured things out. My phone was blowing up the first 48 hours, my husband, his mom, even Amy, that one shocked me. But I didn't answer. I blocked every number, deleted social media, and bought a prepaid phone under cash. It's crazy how easy it is to disappear if you really want to. No dramatic fake names, no spy-level stuff. Just stop being reachable. The hardest part was the silence. I'd built my whole identity around being a wife, being part of his family, even if they treated me like crap. Suddenly, it was just me, my car, and a duffel bag. I cried in that motel bathroom like a teenager running away from home. But the longer I stayed gone, the lighter I felt. I picked up work under the table at a diner, moved into a tiny furnished studio, and started over. Nobody there knew me as so-and-so's wife or the in-law who doesn't belong. I was just me. And the wildest part? No one came looking. Not really. After a couple of weeks, the calls stopped. No cops. No friends from his side. Radio silence. That's when it hit me, Amy's joke was kind of true. If I disappeared, no one in their world would notice. But outside of their world, I was finally free to exist. The first few months after I left were weird. Liberating, but weird. I kept expecting some knock at my door, or to see my husband's car parked outside my building. But nothing ever happened. The only person who noticed my absence was my boss at the diner when I started showing up early for shifts and leaving late just so I wouldn't go back to my empty apartment. I worked, I saved, I stayed quiet. With every paycheck, I felt more secure. I traded my crappy motel room for a small studio. It wasn't much, but it was mine, no judgmental in-laws, no Amy snide remarks, no pretending to laugh along with people who didn't respect me. For the first time in years, I started asking myself questions like, what do I even like? What do I want my life to look like? I hadn't thought about those things since before I got married. I took long walks around my new town. I joined a book club. I was the awkward new girl at first, but they welcomed me. I started cooking meals just for me, experimenting with recipes instead of making the safe things his family liked. And slowly, I realized something. I wasn't lonely. I was peaceful. One night, about 6 months in, I stumbled across an old photo of me and my husband on my laptop. We were smiling, arms around each other. But looking closer, I could see it, the way my smile didn't reach my eyes. I think I knew even back then that I wasn't truly wanted in that family. I was just convenient. The old me would have run back, desperate to prove them wrong. The new me just closed the laptop and went to bed without crying. By the time a year rolled around, I had real friends. A routine. A life. And I hadn't spoken to a single member of that family, including my husband, in 12 months. And then something unexpected happened. They found me. It was almost exactly a year to the day when I walked into the diner for my shift and froze. Sitting in one of the booths, like they'd just strolled in for pancakes, were my husband and his sister, Amy. For a second, I thought I was hallucinating. But then Amy looked up, locked eyes with me, and her mouth actually dropped open. My husband, on the other hand, just looked old, tired. I didn't panic. I didn't cry. I just tied my apron, walked past them, and grabbed a coffee pot. If they wanted to be my customers, fine. Coffee? I asked, voice steady. Amy tried to crack a joke, something like, "Wow, you really did disappear, huh?" But it landed flat. Nobody laughed this time. My husband just stared at me, like he didn't know what to say. Eventually, he did. He told me he'd filed a missing person report after I left, but when the police learned I'd gone willingly, they dropped it. He said he kept expecting me to come back. That every family gathering since then, someone brought me up. Even Amy, apparently. Here's the kicker. He admitted they did notice. That my absence was a hole they couldn't fill, and that it made them realize how cruel they'd been. Amy, for once, didn't have anything smug to add. She just sat there, red-faced, fiddling with her straw. I listened. Then I smiled, not the fake smile I used to wear at those BBQs, but a real one. And I said, "Funny. A year ago, you told me if I disappeared, no one would notice. But here we are." I poured their coffee, turned around, and walked back to the counter. They didn't stay long. When they left, my husband tried to slip me his number. I let it sit on the table until the busboy cleared it away. That night, I went home, lit a candle, and sat in my tiny apartment, my home, with this strange mix of sadness and relief. I'd been forgotten by them once. Now, they were the ones fading into the background of my life. Because the truth is, disappearing wasn't the end of me. It was the beginning. Love stories like this? Then make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe so you never miss what's coming next.